The rain lashed against the windows of the hotel suite, blurring the lights of downtown Seattle. On the day of the wedding, the bridesmaid of honor suddenly hiked the door fee by $30,000. I, the groom, turned directly to a bridesmaid. "Will you marry me?" The entire room went into shock. This story is purely fictional. Any resemblance to actual persons is coincidental. I stood outside the hotel suite door, bouquet in hand, a rowdy group of groomsmen behind me. Laughter drifted from inside, along with the crisp sound of fingernails tapping against the door panel. That was Tiffany Hart's habit. Whenever she wanted something, she would tap her manicured nails on the nearest surface until I caved. "Open the door, honey," I shouted with a smile, softening my voice as if coaxing a willful child. Silence fell inside for a second, followed by the voice of Tiffany's best friend, Jessica Sloan. "Want to pick up the bride? Let's see the door fee first. 30 grand. Ifroza, tinkinide mishart." During the rehearsal last night, we had agreed on $888 just for luck and tradition. How did it suddenly multiply by 30? "Jess, come on, quit joking," I said, forcing a smile as I pulled the prepared red envelope from my suit pocket. "Let's stick to the plan." A hand with bright red nail polish slid through the crack in the door and snatched the envelope. A few seconds later, Jessica scoffed. "Ethan Cole, are you trying to pay off a beggar? 30,000. Cash or wire transfer, doesn't matter. Otherwise, there's no wedding today." The groomsmen behind me went instantly silent. The videographer's lens was still pointed at me. I could feel my smile stiffening, cracking at the edges. "Tiff," I raised my voice, try to bypass Jessica and speak directly to Tiffany. "Is this what you want?" There was silence for a few seconds. Then Tiffany's soft voice floated out, carrying that familiar, wheedling tone I knew so well. "Ethan, it's just 30,000. The girls all say if you can't bear to part with that little bit of money, how will you treat me well in the future?" My heart sank stone by stone. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment prank. It was premeditated. "Tiff, we already paid the down payment on the condo. I borrowed money for the renovation." I lowered my voice, not wanting the groomsmen to hear my humiliation. "I really can't pull out 30,000 right now." Whispered discussions rustled behind the door. Then Jessica's voice rang out again. "How about this? You wire the 30 grand now, and after the wedding, we'll return 20,000 to you. Just to save face." My hand, clutching the bouquet, began to tremble. I crushed the petals, staining my palm with plant juice. Behind me, my groomsman Mike leaned in and whispered, "Ethan, maybe just agree for now? There's so many guests waiting." I pulled out my phone and checked my bank balance, $18,362. That was the money I had saved for the final vendor payments and our honeymoon. "I only have 18,000, I said through gritted teeth. A burst of laughter erupted from inside, and then Tiffany's voice turned shrill. "Ethan, when Jessica got married, her husband gave a $50,000 door fee. I'm only asking for 30. I'm already being considerate." The red recording light on the camera was still blinking, documenting my pathetic state. I took a deep breath, suddenly realizing how absurd this all was. "Tiffany, come out. Let's talk face to face. No money, no door." Jessica cut in. "Tiff, if you don't test a man like this, you'll be the one suffering later." I stared at the closed door, suddenly recalling a scene from 3 months ago. We were looking at wedding rings. Tiffany had set her eyes on a 5-carat diamond. I told her it was over budget. She walked out on the spot. Later, I took on freelance coding gigs for a month, working nights, just to scrape together enough for that ring. And now, she was wearing that ring behind that door, plotting against me with her friends. "Tiffany, I'm asking you one last time." My voice was strangely calm. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Silence stretched for a few seconds. Then I heard Tiffany whisper to Jessica, "He'll definitely pay." He did the same thing with the ring. That sentence shattered my last shred of hope. I turned to look at the groomsmen, my gaze sweeping over everyone until it landed on a bridesmaid named Chloe Vance. She was a colleague of Tiffany's. I was meeting her for the first time today. She wore a pale purple dress and had been standing quietly in the corner the whole time. "Miss Vance." I walked over to her, dropped to one knee, and held up the crushed bouquet. "Will you marry me?" The entire hallway went deathly silent. Chloe's eyes went wide, her lips trembling slightly. The videographer nearly dropped his camera, and the groomsmen's jaws practically hit the floor. I, Chloe stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. I pulled out the ring box, taking out the diamond ring that was supposed to belong to Tiffany. "Right now, immediately. The car is downstairs, and all the guests are waiting in the hotel ballroom." A complex emotion flashed through Chloe's eyes. She looked at the tightly closed door, then in my red-rimmed eyes, and suddenly she smiled. "Sure," she said, extending her hand. "But I don't need a $30,000 door fee." As I slid the ring onto her finger, a scream came from inside the room. "Ethan, are you crazy?" I took Chloe's hand and walked toward the elevator, leaving behind the sound of Tiffany frantically pounding on the door and Jessica's cursing. As the elevator doors slid shut, I saw the suite door finally fly open, Tiffany's exquisitely made-up face twisted into a terrifying mask. "You'll regret this," she screamed. The elevator began to descend. Chloe's hand trembled slightly in my palm. I turned to her, suddenly realizing how insane my actions were. "It's not too late to back out," I said with a bitter smile. Chloe shook her head, a strange light in her eyes. "You know what? Tiffany made a bet with us yesterday. She said you would definitely pay the 30 grand. She wiggled the diamond ring on her hand. I bet you wouldn't." The elevator reached the lobby. The moment the doors opened, blinding sunlight washed over us. In the hotel ballroom, over 100 guests were waiting for a wedding. And I, holding the hand of a stranger, was about to give them a surprise they would never forget. The wedding turns into a farce. Walking out of the elevator, Chloe's fingers trembled in my palm. I realized I was still gripping her hand tightly and quickly let go, only to find her grabbing my wrist in return. "Don't stop," she lowered her voice, staring straight ahead. "If you wimp out now, you really become the joke." The guests in the lobby had already noticed us. My mom's hand, holding a teacup, froze in midair. My dad's frown was deep enough to crush a fly. Tiffany's parents were standing by the head table, the smiles on their faces solidifying. They were probably wondering why the bride had changed. The MC ran over excitedly with the microphone. "The groom is finally down. Is the bride feeling shy?" His voice cut off abruptly as he stared wide-eyed at Chloe. I grabbed the microphone. The feedback whine echoed through the hall. Everyone's gaze was pinned to me. The air was so thick you could cut it with a knife. "Thank you all for coming to my wedding." My voice was calmer than I imagined. "The original bride, Miss Tiffany Hart, cannot attend due to certain reasons." The guest seating exploded with noise. Tiffany's mother let out a shriek, dropping her teacup. My parents shot up from their chairs, their faces pale. So, I took a deep breath and turned to Chloe beside me. "Miss Chloe Vance here is willing to marry me." Dead silence. Chloe's profile was incredibly clear under the lights, the shadows of her eyelashes trembling slightly. I noticed for the first time that she had a small beauty mark near her right eye, which dipped into a tiny dimple when she smiled. "Are you insane?" Tiffany's father rushed up and grabbed me by the collar. "Where's my daughter?" Just then, the elevator doors chimed open. Tiffany rushed out, dragging the hem of her wedding dress, her makeup ruined by tears. Jessica followed close behind, her face ashen. "Ethan!" Tiffany's scream pierced the air. "What is the meaning of this?" The guests went into a frenzy. Some held up phones to record, others whispered, and a few of Tiffany's friends stood up, pointing at Chloe and shouting insults. Chloe suddenly snatched the microphone from my hand. "Miss Hart," her voice was shockingly clear. "When your groom was upstairs, asking you one last time if you would open the door, what did you say?" Tiffany froze, her lips trembling, unable to speak. Jessica shouted over her. "None of your business. You shameless homewrecker." Chloe smiled. She pulled her phone from her clutch and played a recording. Tiffany's voice broadcast clearly across the entire hall. "He'll definitely pay. He did the same thing with the ring." The crowd went into an uproar. Tiffany's face went instantly pale, her carefully styled hair sticking messily to her face. She lunged forward to grab the phone, but tripped over her oversized dress, falling pathetically to the floor. My parents' expressions shifted from shock to anger. My dad grabbed Tiffany's father by the shoulder. "Art, are you selling your daughter or marrying her off?" Tiffany's mother screamed hysterically. "Ethan Cole, if you dare marry this bitch today, I'll make you pay." Chloe suddenly linked her arm through mine, stood on tiptoe, and whispered in my ear, "Kiss me." I paused, looking down into her determined eyes. Under the gaze of hundreds of people, I kissed this woman I had known for less than 2 hours. Her lips were cold, tasting faintly of mint. Amidst Tiffany's crying and Jessica's cursing and the gasps of the guests, the MC stuttered. Then I announced, "Mr. Ethan Cole and Miss Chloe Vance are officially husband and wife." Scattered applause rang out, drowned out by more gossip and the clicking of camera shutters. As Tiffany was dragged away by her parents, she looked back at me one last time, a look that promised to slice me into 1,000 pieces. The banquet proceeded in a bizarre atmosphere. Chloe performed like the perfect bride, toasting table by table with a proper smile. Only I could feel her hand trembling where it rested on my arm. "Why help me?" I finally asked as she touched up her makeup in the dressing room. Chloe applied lipstick in the mirror, watching my reflection. 3 months ago, Tiffany stole a project I was leading and framed me for faking data. She turned around, looking me straight in the eye. "Besides, I hate people who use emotional blackmail." A commotion erupted outside the door. Jessica stormed in with a few bridesmaids, pointing a finger at Chloe's nose. "Bitch, you planned this all along, didn't you?" Chloe calmly set down her lipstick. "Jessica, do I need to talk about how you got the intern drunk at last year's annual party right here?" Jessica's face changed instantly, and she retreated with her tail between her legs. I looked at Chloe in surprise. She winked slyly. Survival in the corporate world. Always keep an ace up your sleeve. When the dinner ended, Chloe and I stood at the hotel entrance seeing off guests. Most avoided eye contact and left in a hurry. Finally, only my parents and a few relatives remained. "Son," my mom started, then stopped. "Where are you two?" "Staying tonight." I realized a serious problem. Chloe and I were legally married in the eyes of the crowd, though not the law yet, but we didn't even know where the other lived. Chloe pulled a room key from her bag. "I booked a suite." I was planning to stay there alone after the wedding anyway. She paused, then added, 2 bedrooms. On the way up, Chloe leaned on my shoulder, pretending to be drunk. Her hair smelled faintly of jasmine, completely different from the heavy perfume Tiffany used. "Ethan," she whispered suddenly, "are we getting a divorce tomorrow?" I looked at the neon lights outside the window, suddenly feeling exhausted. "Let's talk after we sleep." The elevator stopped at our floor. Chloe had actually fallen asleep. I gently picked her up. She was lighter than she looked, like a feather that might float away. The receptionist stared at us, this strange newlywed couple, with curiosity. I smiled bitterly, thinking tomorrow's social media feeds would be spectacular. As the elevator rose, Chloe stirred in my arms, unconsciously nuzzling against my chest. I looked down at the beauty mark near her eye, suddenly hoping the elevator would never stop. Secrets of the wedding night. When I swiped the card to enter the room, Chloe woke up in my arms. She opened her eyes groggily, saw my face inches away, and nearly jumped out of her skin, banging her head on the doorframe. "Ouch!" She clutched her forehead, instantly sober. "We're at the hotel." I set her down. She stumbled a bit before finding her footing. The suite was more luxurious than I expected, with welcome fruit and champagne in the living room, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city nightscape. Chloe kicked off her heels, stepping barefoot onto the carpet, her ankles incredibly slender. "You take the master bedroom." I pushed her suitcase toward it. "I'll sleep on the living room sofa." Chloe shook her head, pulling pajamas from her case. We agreed on 2 bedrooms. She paused, then laughed abruptly. "Speaking of which, we kind of acted like a married couple today." Her smile held a hint of a prankster satisfaction, that beauty mark standing out under the lights. I looked away, feigning interest in the drinks in the minibar. "Want something to drink?" I pulled out a can of beer. "To celebrate our, weird marriage." Chloe took the beer, her fingertips brushing mine, cold as jade. We sat on the sofa in front of the window, neither mentioning divorce. Outside, neon lights flickered and traffic wove through the streets. The city never stopped for anyone's farce. "So," I broke the silence, "what exactly is the beef between you and Tiffany?" Chloe took a sip of beer, foam sticking to her lip, which she subconsciously licked off. "I was the product manager for her department. She was in operations under me." She spun the can in her hands. "Last quarter, she stole my proposal and told the director I copied her idea." I frowned. "That doesn't sound like Tiffany's style." "Really?" Chloe sneered. "When she asks you for gifts, does she always say, 'My best friend's boyfriend gave her such and such'?" I was speechless. That was indeed Tiffany's standard tactic. Always comparing, never satisfied. Chloe suddenly leaned in, the faint scent of alcohol washing over me. "Ethan, do you know why she suddenly wanted 30 grand? I shook my head. Chloe took out her phone and opened a photo. It was a chat log between Tiffany and Jessica, time-stamped early yesterday morning. "Jessica, babe," I asked around. "Ethan's company just paid out year-end bonuses. He has at least 40K in his account." "Tiffany, but he borrowed a lot for the condo." "Jessica, don't be stupid. If you don't take it, someone else will. Worst case, pay him back after the wedding." My fingers unconsciously crushed the empty beer can. Chloe gently placed her hand over mine. "There's better stuff." She swiped the screen. The next photo was Tiffany with another man, dated last week. The man had his arm around her waist. The background clearly a high-end restaurant. "Who is this?" "The new VP at their company." Chloe put the phone away. "Tiffany has been flirting with him for a month." She was just waiting to secure the bride price before showing her hand. I stood up abruptly, my temples throbbing. The window reflected my twisted expression. I looked like a complete fool. The wedding was a scam from the start, and I had almost been the mark. Why tell me this? I turned to question Chloe. You could have just watched me be a joke. Chloe looked up at me, her eyes terrifyingly frank. Because I couldn't stand it. She stood up, barefoot on the carpet. And I think you deserve better. The distance between us suddenly disappeared. I could count her eyelashes. Her breath smelled faintly of beer, her lips glistening in the light. My phone rang abruptly. It was Tiffany. I pressed answer, and her hysterical sobbing instantly flooded my ear. Ethan, how dare you humiliate me like that? I'm going to sue you for bigamy. Chloe rolled her eyes and snatched the phone. Tiffany, the receipt for the hotel room you booked with VP Gavin Reed yesterday is still in the company reimbursement system. Need me to mass email it? The other end went instantly silent. A few seconds later, the dial tone buzzed. Chloe tossed the phone back to me and yawned unexpectedly. I'm sleepy. She walked toward the master bedroom, pausing at the door. By the way, 9 a.m. tomorrow, City Hall? I nodded, watching her close the door. The sound of water running came from the bathroom. I lay on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. Everything today felt like an absurd play, and I wasn't even sure if I really wanted it to end. The phone rang again. This time it was my mom. Son, you and that Chloe girl. Is it real? Mom, I'm really tired right now. Who is she? What does her family do? How long have you known her? I rubbed my temples. 24 hours. My dad's roar came from the background. My mom hurriedly said, bring her home for dinner tomorrow, and hung up. The bathroom door opened. Chloe walked out in pajamas, her wet hair draped over her shoulders. The pajamas were conservative cotton, yet they couldn't hide the slender line of her waist. Your parents? She asked, towel drying her hair. I nodded. They want to meet you tomorrow. Chloe paused, then laughed. Do I need to prepare a script? Like how we fell in love. Just say you fell in love with me at first sight. I joked. Chloe tilted her head, thinking. Water droplets fell from her hair, leaving dark spots on the carpet. Sure, she said softly. I'm best at acting, anyway. The master bedroom door closed again. I lay on the sofa, listening to the faint sounds of footsteps. Outside, it had started to rain, droplets hitting the glass like countless tiny fingers tapping. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a photo from today's wedding. Chloe in her bridesmaid dress, taking my ring amidst the shocked stares. Her expression wasn't surprise, but a strange kind of relief, as if she had finally waited for this moment. When fake becomes real. At 7 a.m., the smell of coffee woke me up. I opened my eyes to see Chloe already dressed, brewing coffee in the kitchenette. The morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, outlining her in a fuzzy, golden glow. Morning, she said without turning. Coffee or tea? I rubbed my stiff neck and crawled off the sofa. Coffee, thanks. Chloe handed me a cup of black coffee. No sugar, no milk. I took a sip and frowned at the bitterness. She laughed. Guessed wrong? I thought all programmers liked black coffee. How did you know I'm a programmer? Tiffany's Instagram. Chloe swiped a few times on her phone. Boyfriend working overtime coding again. Forgot our anniversary. Last September 15th. I took the phone. It was indeed a complaint post from Tiffany, accompanied by an ugly photo of me asleep at my computer. Scrolling down, almost every status implied I wasn't considered enough, romantic enough, or rich enough. Looks like I was worthless in her eyes. I smiled bitterly, handing the phone back. Chloe suddenly reached out and brushed the hair from my forehead, her fingertips grazing a small scar where Tiffany had once hit me with her purse. At least you're handsome. Her action was too natural, so natural I almost forgot we had only known each other for a day. I grabbed her wrist. She didn't pull away. We just stood there in a stalemate, the aroma of coffee diffusing through the air. City Hall opens at 9. Chloe finally withdrew her hand. Heading out now. I nodded, but then, as if possessed, I said, let's go see my parents first. They called last night. Chloe raised an eyebrow. I thought we agreed to divorce today. I have to give them an explanation before the divorce, I said, not knowing what I was holding on to. Consider it seeing the job through to the end? Chloe stared at me for a few seconds, then laughed. Fine, but I'm charging an appearance fee. An hour later, we stood at my parents' door. Chloe had changed into an elegant, modest dress, her hair up in a neat bun, carrying a fruit basket she'd bought on the way. She looked like the standard virtuous daughter-in-law. Only I knew her left leg, hidden under the skirt, was shaking with nerves. My mom's eyes were still swollen when she opened the door. Clearly, she cried all night. Seeing Chloe, she forced a smile. Come in. In the living room, My dad sat stone-faced on the sofa, the ashtray in front of him piled high with cigarette butts. Chloe bowed slightly. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Cole. I am Chloe. Seat. My dad pointed to the chair opposite. Explain. What is going on? Just as I was about to speak, Chloe gently placed her hand on mine. Mr. Cole. Actually, Ethan and I have known each other for a long time. Her voice was gentle and sincere. I'm a freelance designer for his company. We work on projects together often. My parents' expressions softened slightly. Chloe continued weaving the story. Ethan has always looked out for me, but I didn't know he had a girlfriend. It wasn't until the company annual party last month, when he got drunk and talked about being pressured in a marriage, that I knew. Her eyes reddened perfectly, her fingers twisting together. The acting was Oscar-worthy. Yesterday, seeing him humiliated like that before the wedding, I couldn't help it. I know it was impulsive, but I've really liked Ethan for a long time. Chloe looked up, tears suspended precariously on her lashes. My dad sighed heavily, his attitude clearly softening. So what do you plan to do now? We're going to make a life together. I interrupted Chloe, holding her hand. Mom, Dad, Chloe is a good woman. You'll know when you get to know her. Chloe glanced at me in surprise, her fingers scratching my palm lightly, as if asking, what the hell are you doing? Lunch was unexpectedly harmonious. Chloe helped my mom set the table and praised her pot roast. My mom gradually relaxed, even starting to ask about Chloe's family. My family's in Ohio. My parents are both high school teachers. Chloe lied without blinking. I have a younger brother in college. I nearly choked on my soup. Yesterday at the hotel, she clearly said she was an only child. After eating, Mom dragged Chloe to the balcony to look at the flowers, and Dad called me into the study. Son, this girl is stronger than Tiffany. He handed me a cigarette. But are you sure this isn't just an impulse? I shook my head, not knowing how to explain this farce. Through the glass door, I saw Chloe helping my mom prune the roses on the balcony. The sunlight hit her profile, making her look unrealistically gentle. On the way back to the hotel, Chloe remained silent. Only when we stepped into the elevator did she speak. Why change your mind? About what? At the door earlier, you didn't say we were divorcing. She looked me in the eye. Don't tell me you fell in love with me. I pressed the elevator button. Tiffany is bashing us as a cheating couple on Instagram and threatening to sue. Chloe scoffed. You're scared of her? No. I turned to look at her, but I can't swallow this insult. The elevator stopped at our floor. Chloe walked out, then suddenly turned to block the door. So this is revenge? Igis yan sidolnisti. And don't you think this play is getting interesting? Chloe tilted her head, assessing me, then smiled. All right, let's keep acting then. She walked out of the elevator, her heels clicking crisply on the marble floor. But Mr. Cole, playing for keeps has consequences. You better think it through. That night, Tiffany called again. This time she was unusually calm. Ethan, give me my stuff back. What stuff? My jewelry, makeup, and those crystal glasses. I'm sending Jessica to get them tomorrow. Her voice was cold as ice. I hung up. Chloe walked out of the bathroom, water dripping from her hair. Tiffany. I nodded. Jessica is coming tomorrow to get her things. Chloe paused while towel drying her hair. Need me to make myself scarce? No, I said, driven by some strange impulse. You're my wife, remember? The corners of Chloe's mouth ticked up, her eyes flashing with a mischievous light under the lamp. Then we'll have to give Miss Sloane a proper welcome tomorrow. She wrapped her towel tighter and headed for the master bedroom, looking back at the door. By the way, I checked. Bigamy or fraud requires both parties to live together as husband and wife for a long period. So, legally speaking, she winked. Mr. Cole, we need to sleep in the same room. Wasn't this entrapment? I really wanted to just go for it. But the bedroom door closed, leaving me standing in the living room, my heart beating ridiculously fast. Head to heaven, Jessica rang the doorbell. Chloe was tying my tie. Her fingers moved nimbly, her body smelling of faint shampoo. Nervous? She looked up, a ghost of a smile on her lips. I looked down at the tip of her small nose. She should be the nervous one. The doorbell rang again, more urgent this time. Chloe adjusted the knot one last time and patted my chest gently. Go ahead. I'll change into something else. I opened the door. Jessica stood there in a tight dress, her makeup heavier than on the wedding day. She looked me up and down and sneered. Happy honeymoon, Ethan. Stuff's in the bedroom. I stepped aside to let her in. It's all packed. Jessica stomped toward the master bedroom in her high heels, but stopped dead at the doorway. Chloe was walking out wearing one of my dress shirts. The hem barely covered her thighs, exposing her long legs. Morning, Miss Sloane. Chloe leaned lazily against the doorframe. Coffee. Jessica's face went slate gray. You? Slept together. Chloe smiled without answering and turned back into the room. The back of the shirt lifted slightly, revealing the curve of her waist. Jessica's gaze felt like a knife in my back. Ethan, you were cheating the whole time, weren't you? The stuff is in the closet. I couldn't be bothered to explain. Get it yourself. Jessica stormed into the bedroom, roughly rummaging through Tiffany's things. Chloe sat on the edge of the bed, slowly painting her nails, occasionally offering a helpful reminder. That makeup bag is in the drawer. Jewelry box is on the bottom shelf. Bitch! Jessica finally snapped, grabbing a pillow and hurling at Chloe. Chloe dodged easily. The pillow knocked over a picture frame on the nightstand, the family photo we took at my parents' house yesterday. The sound of shattering glass made Jessica pause. She picked up the photo, her expression twisting. Meeting the parents? You guys are playing for real. I stepped forward to take the photo back, but Chloe spoke first. Jessica, do you know why Tiffany was in such a rush for that 30 grand? Jessica's eyes flickered. None of your business. Because she owes money to online lenders. Chloe stood up, pulling a stack of printed papers from a drawer. This is her loan history. She defaulted last week. I stared at the documents in shock. Tiffany's name followed by a list of lending platforms. The total came to exactly around $30,000. Jessica's face went pale. How do you have these? Not hard for a tech god to find. Chloe glanced at me. Right, hubby? The nickname made my heart stutter. Jessica turned to me like she was grabbing a lifeline. Ethan, Tiff was forced. Those loan sharks threaten her every day. So, she comes to extort me? I sneered. Great calculation. Jessica suddenly lunged at Chloe. Give me those. Chloe dodged nimbly, and Jessica lost her balance, falling onto the bed. Her purse fell to the floor, spilling its contents, lipstick, keys, and a box of condoms. The room fell into a weird silence. Chloe bent down and picked up the box, raising an eyebrow. Looks like Miss Sloan has other plans today. Jessica frantically shoved her things back in her bag, grabbed Tiffany's luggage, and bolted. At the door, she looked back viciously. Ethan, you'll regret this. The door slammed shut. Chloe let out a long breath. The collar of the shirt had slipped to one side during the scuffle, revealing a small mole on her collarbone. When did you investigate Tiffany? Chloe put the loan records back in the drawer. Last night, after you fell asleep. She paused. I checked Jessica too, while I was at it. Find anything? She's hooking up with Tiffany's boyfriend, Chloe said casually. VP Gavin Reed. I didn't know whether to be more shocked by the gossip or Chloe's investigative skills. She walked up to me and fixed my collar, which Jessica had messed up. Mr. Cole, do you still think this play is interesting? Her fingertips brushed my neck cool as jade. I grabbed her wrist. Why help me? I told you I can't stand injustice. Chloe tried to pull her hand back, but I held on. The truth. Chloe was silent for a moment, then laughed abruptly. Fine, I admit it. Gavin Reed stole my promotion, and Tiffany was his accomplice. The answer was more realistic than I imagined. I let go of her hand, feeling inexplicably disappointed. Chloe leaned in suddenly, whispering in my ear, but helping you is pretty fun. Her breath tickled my ear. Just as I was about to respond, my phone rang. It was the company HR director. Ethan, we have a problem. Mr. Henderson's voice was unusually serious. Tiffany Hart came to the office, causing a scene, claiming you stole trade secrets. She brought a lawyer. I looked at Chloe. She obviously heard it too, her brow furrowing. HR continued. Worse, someone anonymously reported that you use your position to access client privacy. The board requires your immediate suspension pending investigation. I hung up. Chloe had already opened her laptop. Give me 10 minutes. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, strings of code flashing on the screen. I stood behind her, smelling the faint jasmine in her hair, suddenly realizing I knew almost nothing about this wife of mine. Found it. Chloe turned the screen. The reporting email was sent from Tiffany's computer, but the person operating it was. She clicked on a surveillance screenshot. Jessica was sitting at Tiffany's desk typing. They're trying to destroy you. Chloe closed the laptop. Do you have any dirt on them? I shook my head. Unless what? Unless they faked evidence. I suddenly remembered something. Last week I did check a client's loan record, but that was part of a compliance audit. A sharp light flashed in Chloe's eyes. Who was the client? Anonymous query. The system only shows an ID. Give me the ID. I recited the string of numbers. Chloe opened her computer again. 5 minutes later, her expression turned strange. Ethan, this borrower, is Tiffany's mother. We looked at each other. Chloe slowly pieced the truth together. Tiffany borrowed money in her mom's name. When she defaulted, the system flagged it for audit, and the auditor happened to be you. She paused. They were afraid you'd find out, so they struck first. The phone rang again. This time it was my dad. Son, Tiffany's parents just came to the house causing a ruckus, saying you're a marriage fraudster and scammer. Background sounds of my mom, crying filtered through. I clenched my fist, nails digging deep into my palm. Chloe pressed down on my shoulder. Calm down. Losing it now plays right into their hands. So what do I do? Let them slander me? A cold light flashed in Chloe's eyes. Of course not. She grabbed her jacket. Let's go, hubby. Time to show them what a real tech expert looks like. The way she called me hubby was so natural, as if we'd been married for years. It made my mind wander a bit. Counterattack Chloe took me to a nondescript office building downtown. The elevator went straight to the 28th floor. A sign by the door read Stellar Data Security. The receptionist saw Chloe and greeted her familiarly. Director Vance, long time no see. I looked at Chloe in surprise. She smiled slightly. My old company. Walking through the open office area, many people nodded to Chloe. A young man with black-framed glasses jogged over. Chloe, the server you asked for is ready. He led us into a conference room. 3 monitors and a high-performance tower sat on the table. Chloe logged into the system expertly, the blue light of the screen reflecting on her focused profile. Check all associated accounts for this ID, she told the glasses guy. Especially fund transfers in the last 3 months. Glasses guy typed furiously, quickly bringing up a complex fund flow chart. Chloe pointed to a node. Look, this transfer of $5,000. The recipient is Jessica's cousin. I leaned in closer to the screen, smelling the faint citrus scent of Chloe's hair. She continued tracking. Tiffany's mother has 7 loans in her name. 3 of them ultimately flowed into this company. She clicked open a page. What a coincidence. An online lending platform Gavin Reed owns shares in. Glasses guy whistled. Classic self-financing fraud. Chloe turned to me. Now you understand why Tiffany was desperate for that 30 grand? Her mom is involved in financial fraud. Once the default triggers an investigation, the whole scheme gets exposed. I sucked in a cold breath. Tiffany didn't want a bride price. She wanted hush money. But this isn't enough. Chloe narrowed her eyes. We need decisive evidence. Glasses guy suddenly raised his hand. Chloe, I just found a shared cloud drive between Tiffany's email and Gavin's. 3 minutes later, we saw shocking content. Intimate photos of Tiffany and Gavin, internal company documents, and even several contracts marked confidential. Chloe quickly downloaded everything, a cold sneer curling her lips. Game over. As we left the company, Glasses guy shoved a flash drive into Chloe's hand. Extra bonus. Backups of Gavin's chat logs. He winked at me. Brother-in-law, treat our Chloe well. On the way back to the hotel, Chloe was silent. At a red light, she suddenly spoke. Ethan, have you thought this through? Once this evidence is public, Tiffany could face criminal charges. I looked at the pedestrians rushing by outside the window, remembering the calculating face of Tiffany's mother. They didn't show any mercy when they tried to destroy me. Chloe nodded and said no more. That night, we compiled all the evidence into a PDF. Just as we were about to send it to the board, the doorbell rang. On the monitor, Tiffany stood alone outside, eyes red and swollen, looking nothing like her usual polished self. Open it, Chloe asked me. I took a deep breath and hit the intercom. What is it? Tiffany's voice was choked with tears. Ethan, let's talk. Just the 2 of us. Chloe got up to leave, but I held her back. There's nothing my wife can't hear. Tiffany's tears instantly broke the dam. I know what you found. Please, give me a way out. She slid down to the floor. My mom forced me to borrow that money. She introduced me to Gavin. I never wanted to hurt you. Chloe laughed coldly. Didn't want to hurt him, but you reported him to the company? That was Jessica's idea. Tiffany grabbed the doorframe. She said if we ruined your reputation, you'd come back begging me. I looked at the woman I once loved, suddenly finding her incredibly unrecognizable. Chloe handed me a flash drive. It's your call. Tiffany saw the drive, her face draining of color. Ethan, for the sake of our 5 years. 5 years, I smiled bitterly. Did you think about those 5 years when you planned to scam me out of 30 grand? In the end, I deleted the parts involving criminal liability, keeping only the evidence that proved my innocence. After sending it to HR, I messaged Tiffany, debts paid, data destroyed. Stay out of my life. Chloe didn't speak the whole time, just sat quietly by the window drinking tea. I walked over to her and found she was looking at old photos of Tiffany and me, downloaded from the cloud backup at some point. Regret it? She asked. I tossed my phone onto the sofa. Never. Chloe closed the photos and suddenly said, I had another reason for investigating Gavin. She pulled up a medical record. My father borrowed from their platform. Violent debt collectors put him in the ICU with a heart attack. I finally understood her true motive. Moonlight spilled through the window, outlining her slender silhouette. In this moment, Chloe wasn't the master hacker, just a daughter wanting justice for her father. "What do you need me to do?" I asked. Chloe shook her head. "It's enough. You've helped me a lot." We sat silently in the moonlight, each lost in thought. After a long while, Chloe whispered, "Ethan, let's get divorced tomorrow." The suggestion, which should have been a relief, felt like a stone on my chest. I turned to her. "What?" "The play is over," Chloe smiled. "Tiffany won't bother you again, and you've cleared your name." I wanted to say something, but my phone rang. It was the HR director. "Ethan, the board saw the evidence. You're reinstated." Also, he paused. VP Reed was just taken away by the police for investigation. I hung up. Chloe was already heading to the bedroom. "Good night. See you tomorrow." The door clicked shut. I stood in the middle of the living room, suddenly realizing a terrifying fact. I didn't want to end this absurd marriage. This woman I'd known less than a week had walked into my heart in the strangest way. Outside, the city lights still shone brightly. I picked up my phone and canceled the appointment at the courthouse. Fake love becomes real when I woke up in the morning. I found a blanket over me. Breakfast sat on the coffee table with a sticky note. "Courthouse at 9. Don't be late." Chloe, there was a smiley face drawn on the back, as mischievous as she was. I stared at that smiley face for a long time, then suddenly decided to be impulsive. When Chloe came out of the bedroom, I was already dressed and making coffee. She wore a simple white t-shirt and jeans, hair in a ponytail, looking like a college student. "Morning." She checked her watch. 1 hour left. I slid a coffee to her. "We aren't going to the courthouse today." Chloe froze. "What?" I canceled the appointment. Her brow furrowed. "Ethan, we had a deal." I changed my mind. I looked her straight in the eye. "Unless you give me a reason why we must divorce." Chloe's eyelashes trembled like startled butterflies. She set down her cup, her voice very quiet. "Because this isn't real." "What isn't real?" "Everything." She suddenly got agitated. The marriage, living together, even those kisses. It was all just to get back at Tiffany. I walked closer to her, close enough to smell her body wash. "Then why did you help me investigate Gavin?" "That went way beyond getting back at Tiffany." Chloe turned her face away. "I told you, that was for my father." "Is that really all?" She fell silent. Sunlight filtered through the gap in the curtains, casting fragmented light across her face. I gathered my courage and gently lifted her chin. "Chloe, look at me." There was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Vulnerability, hesitation, and a sliver of hope. "What if I said I don't want a divorce?" Chloe's breathing quickened. Do you know what you're saying?" I'm clearer than ever. The distance between us was so close we could feel each other's breath. Just as I was about to kiss her, the doorbell rang. Chloe stumbled back as if waking from a dream, flustered as she straightened her already neat collar. Go see who it is." Annoyed, I pulled the door open. 2 men in uniforms stood outside. "Mr. Ethan Cole? We're from the police cybercrimes unit. We need your cooperation regarding a case." Chloe walked over immediately. "What is it?" The officer showed his badge. "Regarding the illegal intrusion into the computer systems of Stellar Data Security. Please come with us." I looked at Chloe in shock. Her face had gone instantly pale. In the police interrogation room, the cold fluorescent light was dizzying. The officer slid a printed document across the table. "Mr. Cole, did you log into the internal system of Trust Credit Finance yesterday?" I understood immediately Tiffany's counterattack. "No," I said firmly. "I was with Chloe all day yesterday." The officer turned to Chloe. "Ms. Vance, what is your position at Stellar Data?" Chloe twisted her fingers together. "Former CTO. I resigned 3 months ago." "Do you know Gavin Reed?" "Yes, he was a client of our company." The officer suddenly slid a photo forward. "What about this?" The photo showed Chloe talking to a stranger in a coffee shop, a laptop open in front of the man. Chloe's pupils constricted. "This is Kevin, a former employee of Trust Credit. He was arrested last week for selling client data." The officer said coldly. "He confessed that you paid him for system access." I stood up abruptly. "That's impossible." The officer motioned for me to sit. "Mr. Cole, the IP address used to log into the Trust Credit system yesterday traces back to Stellar Data's servers." Chloe spoke suddenly. "I did it." I looked at her in disbelief. Chloe's voice was calm, but her hands shook onto the table. "It has nothing to do with Ethan. He knew nothing." The officers exchanged a look. "Ms. Vance, do you know the legal penalties for illegal data acquisition?" "I know." Chloe looked up. "But I have evidence that Gavin Reed is involved in financial fraud and violent debt collection." She pulled up several audio recordings on her phone, Conversations between Gavin and his subordinates discussing how to forge loan contracts. The officer's expression turned serious. Where did you get these? Kevin gave them to me. Chloe looked the officer in the eye. But I didn't do it for money. I did it for my father. She brought up photos of her father in the hospital and the diagnosis report, along with video of Gavin's thugs making a scene at the hospital. After watching, the officer's attitude softened noticeably. Ms. Vance, being a vigilante, still requires following the law. The questioning lasted 3 hours. In the end, the police decided to release Chloe pending trial, and I was allowed to leave since I truly knew nothing. Walking out of the precinct, the sun was already setting. Chloe stood on the steps, her back looking as thin as paper. I walked over and gently held her hand. Why didn't you tell me the truth? What use would telling you be? She smiled bitterly. Turn you into an accomplice? I could have helped you. How? By almost getting yourself arrested like just now. Chloe pulled her hand away. Ethan, we shouldn't have gotten involved. Let's get divorced tomorrow. She turned to leave. I grabbed her. Chloe, listen to me. I don't care what you did, and I don't care about legal risks. I just know I don't want to lose you. Tears finally fell from Chloe's eyes. You're crazy. Maybe. I wiped her tears away. But it's worth it. We stood at the police station entrance like two maniacs against the world. Chloe finally leaned against my shoulder, whispering, I might go to jail. Then I'll wait for you. What if it's a long time? Then I'll wait longer. She looked up at me, eyes red. Why? Because. I cupped her face. I love you, Chloe. Not acting. For real. Chloe's tears surged again. She stood on tiptoes and gave me a kiss tasting of salty tears. I love you too, you idiot. In the distance, the precinct's lights flickered in the night. Our shadows overlapped on the ground, like two lonely souls finally finding each other. I had the storm Chloe's case moved faster than expected. 3 days later, the DA's office called. They decided not to prosecute. The evidence of Gavin's crimes was solid, and Chloe's actions were deemed substantial assistance. I put down the phone and hugged Chloe, who was making coffee. It's over. Her body stiffened in my arms for a second, then slowly relaxed. Really? Really? I kissed the top of her head. Gavin is suspected of fraud, illegal collection, and bribery. The evidence you provided was huge. Chloe's lashes fluttered, casting a small shadow under her eyes. Then my father. The police have shut down that lending company. All the violent collection cases are being reopened. The coffee pot whistled sharply, but Chloe seemed not to hear it, gripping my shirt tightly. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen window onto her trembling shoulders. This master hacker was just a lost child right now. I turned off the stove and cupped her face. Want to go see your dad? Chloe's eyes reddened. Now. An hour later, we stood at the entrance to the inpatient ward at City Hospital. Chloe stopped suddenly. Ethan, there's something I haven't told you. My heart skipped a beat. What? My father. She took a deep breath. He doesn't know I got married. I laughed out loud. That's it. Also, Chloe bit her lip. I told him you're a tech executive making $1 million a year. It was just to make him feel better while he was sick. Chloe explained hurriedly. He always worries I won't get married. I couldn't help laughing, pinching her nose. Ms. Vance, your storytelling skills are getting better and better. When the hospital room door opened, I saw a thin old man reading a newspaper with reading glasses. Seeing Chloe, his eyes lit up. Coco. Dad, this is Ethan. Chloe's voice suddenly became soft and sweet. My husband. Mr. Vance's gaze scanned me like an X-ray from head to toe, finally settling on the smartwatch on my wrist. Coco says you work in AI. Yes, sir. I played along, bracing myself. Mostly deep learning algorithms. Salary. Dad. Chloe stomped her foot. 1.2 million pre-tax. I lied with a straight face. With stock options, about 2 million. Chloe pinched me hard on the back. But Mr. Vance nodded in satisfaction, suddenly pulling a folder from the nightstand. Perfect. Take a look at this project for me. I opened the file. It was a blockchain white paper. Chloe leaned in and whispered, My dad is a retired computer science professor. He got obsessed with crypto after retiring. For the next 2 hours, I was forced to listen to a lecture on decentralized finance. Mr. Vance spoke with animation, looking nothing like a sick man. As we left, he patted my shoulder. Come for dinner this weekend. I'll show you my mining rig. In the hallway, Chloe let out a long breath. Nice acting. Who said I was acting? I took her hand. I really want to marry you, Chloe. Her fingers trembled slightly in my palm. Even if I'm a liar? Even if I almost went to jail? Even so, the elevator doors opened, and a group of doctors walked out. As we stepped aside, Chloe suddenly froze. The last person in the group was Tiffany. She was wearing a white coat with an intern badge, holding a clipboard. Seeing us, she clearly froze too, her gaze landing on our joined hands. Ethan, she finally spoke, her voice dry. What a coincidence. Chloe instinctively tried to pull her hand away, but I held it tighter. You work here. In turn, Tiffany adjusted her coat. Neurology. The atmosphere was awkward enough to wring water from. Chloe suddenly asked, Is your mother okay? Tiffany's expression became complex. Thanks to you, she's out on bail. She paused. Gavin Reed pushed all the blame onto her. I didn't know what to say. Tiffany smiled suddenly, a smile uglier than crying. Ethan, did you know? My mom forced me to break up with you because she saw Gavin had money. The elevator doors opened again, and Jessica walked out. Seeing us, she let out an exaggerated wow. Isn't it the newlyweds? Tiffany snapped. Jessica. What? Old lovers meeting, tensions rising? Jessica said sarcastically. Ethan, heard your wife almost went to prison? Chloe's hand turned ice cold in mine. I stepped forward, shielding Chloe behind me. Jessica, your cousin got arrested for money laundering for Gavin, right? Jessica's face changed instantly. I suggest you worry about yourself, I said coldly. The police are investigating everyone connected to Gavin. Tiffany suddenly pulled Jessica. Let's go. As they passed, Tiffany whispered, I'm sorry. Chloe and I stood there, watching them walk into a patient's room. Chloe asked softly, Do you believe she meant it? Doesn't matter anymore. I put my arm around her shoulder. What matters is where do we go now? Continue pretending to be a loving couple, or... Chloe stood on tiptoes, sealing my question with a kiss. Her lips were warm and soft, tasting of coffee. When we parted, her eyes shone like stars. Ethan, let's go home. That word home warmed my heart. That night, Chloe curled up in my arms watching an old movie. Her hair was draped over my chest, tickling. Halfway through the movie, she suddenly said, I want to go back to work at Stellar. My boss called today. He wants me back as CTO. She looked up at me. What do you think? I brushed the stray hairs from her forehead. As long as you're happy. But it might be really busy. I can bring you lunch. Chloe laughed, the little mole near her eye dancing. The executive with the $2 million salary delivering lunch? For my wife? Worth it. She suddenly rolled over, pinning me down, eyes shining in the dark. Ethan, let's go to City Hall tomorrow. My heart sank. Still want a divorce? Chloe shook her head, her long hair falling like a soft curtain. To retake our wedding photos. She traced my face gently with her finger. This time I want a real one. Moonlight spilled in, coating us in silver. In this gentle night, I finally understood some connections are destined from the start to be more than just a farce. Real life, the lights in the City Hall photo room were blinding. The photographer, a girl with round glasses, looked at the marriage certificate Chloe, and I handed her, confused. Aren't you two already married? Retaking the photo, Chloe explained with a smile. The last one was too ugly. It was indeed ugly. The photo on the certificate was a screenshot from the wedding surveillance video. It was blurry, I looked ferocious, and only half of Chloe's face was visible. Closer, the photographer directed. Sir, don't be so stiff. Smile. I tried to force the corners of my mouth up, but my muscles wouldn't cooperate. Chloe suddenly pinched my waist. I let out a ow just as the camera snapped. Perfect. The photographer looked at the result. The bride has a sweet smile, and the groom has personality. Holding the fresh marriage certificate, Chloe treated it like a treasure. In the sunlight, the photo showed her smiling like a flower, while I looked like a hostage grimacing in pain. So unique, Chloe kissed the certificate. This is the real us. I hugged her waist. Where to next, wifey? The nickname made Chloe's ears turn red. She thought for a moment. Let's go buy rings. Real ones. In the jewelry store, Chloe frowned at a row of diamond rings. Too flashy. Eventually, she picked a pair of plain bands. We engraved our names and the wedding date on the inside. Technically, the date our farce began. The clerk smiled. Anything special to engrave? Chloe looked at me. I leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Her eyes lit up instantly, and she nodded to the clerk. Engrave that. Walking out of the jewelry store, the sun was perfect. Chloe swung my hand. What did you say to the clerk just now? Guess. Probably nothing good, she pouted. This woman is high maintenance or something. I laughed and pulled her into a hug. I told her to engrave. Thanks for crashing the wedding. Chloe froze for a second, then stomped hard on my foot, unable to hide the smile on her lips. That night, we officially moved into our new home, a 2-bedroom apartment close to both our offices. While unpacking, Chloe dug a small tin box out of the bottom of her suitcase. My dark history, she said mysteriously. Want to see? Inside were photos from her college days. Short hair, black frame glasses, looking like a total nerd. I flipped to the bottom and found a debate team group photo. It was the time Tiffany and I won the championship. Standing in a corner was an inconspicuous girl. It was college-era Chloe. Wait, my eyes went wide. You were there. Chloe nodded. I was in logistics, manning the timer. She pointed to the corner of the photo. That last sentence you used to rebut the opponent? I remembered it for 5 years. What sentence? The truth may be late, but it is never absent, Chloe repeated softly. From that day on, I decided to study computer science, to use technology to expose lies. I looked into her shining eyes, suddenly understanding the wonder of fate. Our story had been planted 5 years ago. My phone rang suddenly, interrupting the romantic moment. Chloe picked it up, her expression growing serious. When? Okay, I'll be right there. What's wrong? Company server got hacked. She grabbed her coat. Someone is attacking the evidence database for the Gavin Reed case. Stellar Data was lit up like midday. When we rushed into the server room, the tech team was in chaos. Chloe's boss, a middle-aged man with a ponytail, came over. Chloe, they're targeting the Reed case. Chloe was already at the main console, fingers flying. Trace the IP. Jump server is offshore, but the attack pattern is familiar. Chloe stopped suddenly. It's Jessica. The code on the screen halted, replaced by a line of blood-red text. Chloe, the game has just begun. The boss's face went pale. Jessica? Isn't she a nursing major? Her cousin is a hacker, Chloe typed rapidly. He hacked our test server last year. I gripped Chloe's shoulder. Can we recover the data? Yes, but only 80% was backed up off-site. She pulled up a list. The remaining 20% is recently added evidence, including Tiffany's mother's testimony. I finished her sentence. Silence fell over the room. Everyone knew what this meant. If key evidence was destroyed, Gavin might escape some charges. Chloe suddenly stood up. I need to go to the police station. At 3 a.m., we stood in the cybercrimes office. The officer in charge of the Reed case shook his head after hearing the situation. We have backups of the original evidence, but the problem is, how did Jessica know the evidence was stored at Stellar? I interjected, unless someone told her. The officer and Chloe exchanged a look. I felt a sinking feeling. Tiffany, not necessarily voluntarily, Chloe analyzed calmly. Jessica might have snooped on Tiffany's phone or computer. The officer promised to strengthen evidence protection and investigate Jessica. Walking out of the station, the horizon was turning pale gray. Chloe leaned on my shoulder and yawned wearily. Let's go home. That word warmed me again. Once, home was just a place to sleep. Now it was a sanctuary. We slept until noon. Chloe had a dozen missed calls, all from the company. She called back, her face darkening. Okay, I'll handle it. Something happened again. Worse than I thought. Chloe opened her laptop. Jessica published partial client data on the dark web, including my father's medical records. On the screen was a screenshot of a dark web forum. Mr. Vance's hospital records and photo were posted under a bounty header. Dox this old man's daughter. My blood froze. This is criminal. Yes, but the dark web is hard to trace. Chloe's voice was unusually calm, but her fingers trembled. Ethan, I'm afraid they'll hurt my dad. I immediately called the hospital to confirm Mr. Vance's safety. Then I contacted a lawyer I knew to prepare a lawsuit against Jessica. Chloe began writing a tracking program, trying to lock onto Jessica's location. By evening, we received news from the police. Jessica's cousin had confessed, admitting to helping her hack the system. But Jessica herself was missing, possibly on the run. Where would she go? I rubbed my temples. Abroad? Chloe shook her head. Jessica doesn't have a passport. She suddenly thought of something, pulling up a map. Her hometown. It's in the rural mountains of the neighboring state. No surveillance cameras there. We immediately provided the lead to the police. After hanging up, Chloe curled up on the sofa, looking exhausted. I sat beside her and gently held her. It will be okay. I know. She buried her face in my chest. I just didn't expect our newlywed life would be this thrilling. I kissed the top of her head. Regret it. Chloe looked up, eyes bright. Do you mean marrying you? Or getting involved in this mess? Both. Her answer was a long kiss. When we parted, the city lights were coming on outside. On this ordinary night, we, this extraordinary couple, were facing our first real challenge. And strangely, I wasn't afraid at all. Whatever happened, we would face it together. That is the true shape of marriage. Dust settles. The police staked out Jessica's hometown for 3 days, finally capturing her at dawn. She was about to burn a laptop containing all the data stolen from Stellar. When the news came, Chloe and I were at the hospital playing chess with her dad. Mister. Vance adjusted his glasses, staring at the board. Checkmate. Chloe's phone rang. She looked at it and let out a long breath. Caught her. Mister. Vance didn't even look up. Another game? I was surprised by the old man's calmness. Later, I learned Chloe had told him everything early on, and the retired professor's reaction was, need me to write a counter-tracking script? Leaving the hospital, the sun was shining. Chloe stretched. Time to celebrate. Ow! She winked. Let's do the wedding properly. A week later, we held a simple wedding. No $30,000 door fee, no luxury fleet, just parents and a few close friends. Chloe wore a simple white dress, I wore a standard suit, and we exchanged rings in a small chapel. During the speeches, Mr. Vance said, my daughter has loved solving difficult problems since she was small. It seems Ethan is the hardest problem she's ever encountered. Everyone laughed, and Chloe blushed, pinching my arm. After the wedding, we received an unexpected gift, a card sent by Tiffany through a friend. Inside was a single sentence, I wish you happiness, accompanied by the pair of crystal glasses she had insisted on taking back. Chloe placed the glasses on the bookshelf. Is this a peace offering or a protest? Doesn't matter. I hugged her from behind. What matters is our life now. Indeed, our lives gradually got on track. Chloe returned to Stellar as CTO, and I was promoted to technical director. Every weekend, we visited Mr. Vance, playing chess or listening to him talk about blockchain, even though we barely understood a word. Jessica was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Chloe and I went to the sentencing. She wore a prison uniform, her hair cut short, looking much older than her age. After the verdict, she looked back at us, her expression too complex to decode. Walking out of the courthouse, the sun was blinding. Chloe suddenly said, actually, I'm kind of grateful to her. Why? If she hadn't hacked the company system, we wouldn't have rushed to the police station that night. Chloe smiled, reminiscing. You were so sleepy you were swaying, but you insisted on staying up to help me check data. I thought then, this man is worth marrying. I squeezed her hand. Still time to regret it. Too late. She wiggled the ring on her hand. Item sold, no returns. When autumn came, Mr. Vance fully recovered. He couldn't sit still, so he started teaching programming at the senior center and formed a blockchain study group. Every family gathering, he would pull me aside to discuss the future of decentralized finance, while Chloe rolled her eyes nearby. Our life was ordinary and full. Chloe learned to cook, though she often turned the kitchen into a disaster zone. I got into the habit of making her coffee every morning, even on weekends. The crystal glasses on the shelf remained there, a reminder of our absurd yet precious beginning. One weekend morning, Chloe shook me awake. Ethan, I have a secret to tell you. I opened my eyes groggily. You hacked another system? More serious than that. She took my hand and placed it on her flat stomach. You're going to be a dad. I was instantly awake, scrambling up. Really? Confirmed at the checkup 2 weeks ago. Tears shone in Chloe's eyes. I wanted to wait until it was stable to tell you. I hugged her tightly, feeling her warm body and the tiny life pulsing beneath my palm. Sunlight filtered through the curtains onto the bed, outlining us in gold. In that moment, I suddenly remembered that chaotic wedding morning. When I slammed the door and left, I never imagined that decision would lead me to such a beautiful future. Thank you, I whispered in Chloe's ear. For what? Thanks for crashing the wedding. Chloe smiled, the little beauty mark near her, eyes sparkling in the morning light. You're welcome, Mr. Cole. It was the best decision I ever made. Outside, the city bustle was slowly waking up, and our story had come to a perfect end. Story complete.